Ever been treated like you're invisible? Like you don't matter? What if I told you the person being ignored right now could be the only one capable of saving everyone in the room? You're standing in a gleaming corporate tower, watching the CEO humiliate someone in front of dozens of people. Cameras are rolling. Everyone's laughing. The person on their knees is cleaning up coffee that was deliberately poured on the floor they just mopped. You'd probably scroll past it, right? Just another viral video of someone getting put in their place. But what if that person kneeling wasn't who you thought? What if behind those hollow eyes and trembling hands was someone who'd flown through actual war zones? Someone who'd saved lives at altitudes where one mistake means death? Someone who was about to save the very person humiliating them? This is a story about masks. The ones we wear to hide our pain. The ones we use to protect ourselves. And the moment when those masks shatter, revealing who we really are underneath. Let me take you back 6 months before everything fell apart. Before the humiliation. Before the near-death experience. Before the truth came crashing down like a helicopter with failing hydraulics. Robert Blackwood's private jet disappeared into the Atlantic Ocean on a routine flight. No survivors. Just twisted metal sinking into dark water and questions nobody wanted to answer. His daughter Victoria inherited everything overnight. $2 billion worth of aerospace empire. Military contracts. Cutting-edge technology. And pressure that would crush most people. But Victoria wasn't most people. She was brilliant, driven, and absolutely convinced that showing weakness meant losing everything. So she became ice. Pure, unbreakable ice. Meanwhile, in the same building where Victoria made million-dollar decisions, someone else was just trying to survive another night. Marcus Thompson started his shift at 11 p.m., like he had for 3 years. $15 an hour. No benefits. No sick days. Just him, a mop, and 15 floors of corporate excess to clean before sunrise. The chemicals burned his hands every night. The fluorescent lights triggered headaches that reminded him of things he'd rather forget. But he needed this job. Needed the routine. Needed something to focus on besides the nightmares. Most nights, he was invisible. People walked past him like he was part of the furniture. And that was fine. Preferred, actually. Because being invisible meant nobody asked questions. Nobody looked too closely. Nobody discovered what he was trying so hard to forget. But tonight was different. Victoria was working late, spread out in the boardroom with blueprints and maintenance logs covering that expensive mahogany table. Marcus pushed his cleaning cart past her office, doing his job, staying invisible. Then something caught his eye. Just numbers on a page. Flight hours logged at 12:47, but the engine runtime showed only 9:81. Now, most people wouldn't notice that. Most people would see numbers and move on. But Marcus wasn't most people, even if nobody knew it yet. He paused. Just for a second. Long enough for Victoria to notice. Her voice cut through the silence like a blade. Enjoying the view? She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, looking at him the way you'd look at something stuck to your shoe. These machines are more complex than your entire neighborhood. Marcus went back to mopping. Just doing my job, ma'am. Your job. She actually laughed. You know what's funny? That helicopter outside has an autopilot system worth more than you'll make in your lifetime. Dual turboshaft engines. Fly-by-wire controls. She walked closer, her perfume overwhelming the ammonia smell. But you wouldn't understand any of that, would you? He said nothing. What was there to say? She was right about one thing. The helicopter was worth millions. What she didn't know was that he understood those systems better than she ever would. That he'd flown aircraft like that through actual combat. That those numbers he'd noticed meant someone was setting up an accident. But he stayed quiet. Kept mopping. Because that's what invisible people do. The boardroom door opened and the CFO walked in. David Sterling. 45 years old. Usually composed. But tonight his hands shook as he poured whiskey. Victoria, we need to discuss the Airbus deal. $500 million has to close on the 15th. Everything's arranged, Victoria replied, still watching Marcus. My father built this empire. I won't let it fall. David's gaze shifted to the helicopter visible through the window. Something passed across his face. Something Marcus recognized from his military days. Desperation mixed with calculation. Your father was careful about who he trusted. And I'm not. Victoria's tone could freeze blood. David stopped himself, glanced at Marcus. We shouldn't discuss this around staff. Marcus emptied his mop bucket, but his mind was racing. Mismatched flight hours. A nervous CFO. A deal happening on the 15th. And that look on David's face. The look of a man backed into a corner. In the bathroom, Marcus pulled out a small orange pill bottle. His hands trembled as he swallowed the medication dry. The pills that were supposed to stop the nightmares. The faces he still saw. The memories that wouldn't fade. He looked at himself in the mirror. Hollow cheeks. Bags under his eyes. This was what 3 years of hiding looked like. 3 years of pretending to be nobody. When he returned to the boardroom, he noticed something else. A red stain on the carpet near the emergency exit. Most people would assume it was wine or coffee. But Marcus knew hydraulic fluid when he saw it. Aviation hydraulic fluid, specifically. The kind that turns red when contaminated. Why would aviation hydraulic fluid be inside an office building? Sarah from HR appeared in the hallway, looking exhausted and clutching a folder marked confidential. She offered him a tired smile. Long night. Always is. She glanced toward Victoria's office and lowered her voice. She's getting worse. Ever since Robert. She stopped herself. I should go. But Marcus had noticed the folder. The edge of a document visible. Last will and testament in handwriting that looked official. Sarah hurried away, and Marcus caught fragments of Victoria and David's heated discussion. The 15th is non-negotiable, David insisted. The insurance policies, the investor meetings, everything hinges on that date. I said it's handled. I'll take the helicopter myself if I have to. David went pale. The helicopter? But the maintenance is perfect. I checked myself. Victoria turned suddenly. Still here? Don't you have toilets to clean? Marcus nodded and pushed his cart toward the exit. But everything was connecting in his mind like puzzle pieces. The mismatched numbers. The hydraulic fluid. David's fear. The 15th. 5 days away. Something was going to happen. Something Victoria couldn't see because she was too busy looking down at people to see the danger right in front of her. But Marcus saw it. He'd always been good at seeing things others missed. That's what had kept him alive in places where one mistake meant death. And that's what would keep Victoria alive now, whether she deserved it or not. The next morning arrived cold and bitter. Marcus hadn't slept. The pills didn't help anymore. They never really had. Victoria stood in the main lobby addressing 40 managers at the quarterly meeting. Marcus was nearby, mopping the same marble floor he cleaned every night. Invisible as always. Until Victoria decided otherwise. Speaking of efficiency, she announced, her voice carrying across the expensive lobby. Let me demonstrate what happens when we lower our standards. Every step toward Marcus was deliberate. Calculated. She was making a point, and he was the prop. This man has worked here 3 years. She gestured at him like pointing at a mistake. 3 years of pushing him up. Tell me, Marcus, in all that time, have you learned anything about aviation? The managers chuckled. Marcus kept mopping. Answer me. I've learned some things. Some things. Victoria grabbed a cup of coffee from a nearby executive. Like what? The difference between clean and dirty. She poured the entire cup onto the floor Marcus had just cleaned. Hot coffee spread across white marble. Steam rose between them like a challenge. Clean that up. Marcus set down his mop. That's deliberate destruction. Clean. Up. Each word landed like a hammer. Or clear out your locker. The room went completely silent. 40 pairs of eyes watching. Someone pulled out their phone, started streaming live. The caption read, CEO puts janitor in his place. Marcus looked at the spill. At Victoria. At all those cameras pointed his way. Then he got on his knees. The sound echoed through the lobby. He pulled paper towels from his cart and started soaking up coffee. Victoria stood over him, her shadow falling across his hunched form. This is what happens when we don't maintain standards, she told her audience. This is why Skytech only hires the best. Not. She looked down at Marcus. Whatever this is. Up on the mezzanine, David Sterling was on his phone, voice barely audible. Yes, the 15th. Everything's in place. The hydraulics will fail at altitude. Make it look natural. Even on his knees, even with humiliation burning through his veins, Marcus heard every word. Sarah Mitchell pushed through the crowd and knelt beside Marcus with paper towels. Here, let me help. Sarah, don't. Victoria's heel came down inches from Sarah's hand. He needs to learn his place. Alone. Sarah stood but pressed something into Marcus's palm as she did. A small key. Her eyes met his for just a fraction of a second, and she mouthed 2 words. Tonight. Robert's office. The crowd dispersed, but the damage was complete. The live stream had 2,000 views already. The comments poured in. Brutal. She owns him. Know your place. Marcus finished cleaning and stood. His knees ached. Coffee stained his uniform. But his face remained completely neutral. Better, Victoria said. Maybe in another 3 years you'll learn to do it right the first time. She started to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Marcus? That helicopter key you picked up yesterday? Keep it. Consider it a reminder of everything you'll never be able to do. Her heels clicked away. The executives followed, laughing. Marcus stood alone in that lobby. But his mind was working. 1,247 hours logged. 981 actual. Someone doctoring records. David's confession on the phone. The 15th, just 5 days away. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Stop digging or you'll join Robert. Marcus deleted it and looked up at the helicopter on the roof. In 5 days, Victoria would fly to sign the biggest deal in company history. In 5 days, if he did nothing, she would die. The woman who'd just made him crawl. Who'd humiliated him in front of everyone. Who represented everything wrong with how people treat each other. His hand went to his pocket. The pills rattled. Then deeper, to the key Sarah had given him. For the first time in 3 years, his hands weren't shaking. For the first time since Fallujah, his mind was perfectly clear. He picked up his mop and continued working. But something fundamental had shifted. War was coming, and this time he'd be ready. 2 nights before the 15th, Marcus worked his usual shift. But everything felt charged, dangerous. The building hummed with preparation for Victoria's flight to Boston, the Airbus deal that would reshape everything. At 2 in the morning, the executive floor was empty. Marcus used Sarah's key to enter Robert's old office. Nobody had touched it since his death. Dust danced in moonlight. The smell of expensive cigars and aged leather hung in the air like memories. He searched methodically. Desk drawers. Filing cabinets. Behind picture frames. Then, inside a hollowed-out aviation manual, he found it. A flash drive labeled simply, Insurance. Marcus plugged it into Robert's computer. Files opened. Life insurance policies, but not normal ones. If Victoria died in an aviation accident, David Sterling would receive $100 million as interim CEO compensation. The policy was taken out 2 weeks before Robert's death. A sound in the hallway. Marcus pocketed the drive and grabbed his mop. David entered, drunk, his expensive suit wrinkled, phone pressed to his ear. I need more time. The $50 million. I can get it after the 15th. Pause. No, please. Not my family. My daughter's only 8. His voice cracked. I'll do what you want. The helicopter's ready. The hydraulic fluid's been replaced with the compound. It'll crystallize at 10,000 feet. Marcus stayed frozen behind the door, barely breathing. David continued. Victoria won't suffer. It'll be quick. Just like her father. The words hung in the air like poison. David ended the call and stumbled to the window, staring at the helicopter. I'm sorry, Robert. They gave me no choice. The gambling debts. They have photos of my daughter's school. He left. Marcus emerged from hiding, mind racing. David hadn't killed Robert directly, but he'd let it happen. Now history was about to repeat itself. Marcus climbed to the roof. The Sikorsky sat silent under the stars. He opened the maintenance panel with practiced ease. There, the hydraulic lines. He touched the fluid, rubbed it between his fingers. Wrong consistency. Wrong smell. This would crystallize at altitude, locking the controls completely. But he couldn't just drain it. David would notice. Victoria wouldn't believe him without proof. Marcus had an idea. Dangerous. Possibly stupid, but it might work. He carefully added a small amount of standard hydraulic fluid to the mix. Not enough to prevent crystallization, but enough to delay it. Instead of failing at 10,000 feet over the ocean, it would fail at 3,000. Low enough for an emergency auto-rotation landing. If Victoria could perform one. If she didn't panic. If she listened to instructions. Too many ifs. Back in the janitor's closet, Marcus pulled out an old notebook and started writing. Step-by-step emergency procedures. How to recognize hydraulic failure. How to auto-rotate. How to survive. He'd slip it into the helicopter before her flight. His phone rang. Unknown number. You were in Robert's office. A disguised voice. Stop now or your medical records go public. PTSD. Psychiatric discharge. The incident in Fallujah. Marcus hung up. They knew about Fallujah. About the family he'd almost killed. About why he couldn't fly anymore. Morning came too quickly. Victoria arrived early, reviewing flight plans in the boardroom. Marcus cleaned around her, invisible again. Big day tomorrow, she said to no one in particular. 500 million. Daddy would be proud. Marcus noticed her hands shaking slightly. She was scared. Hiding it behind cruelty, but scared nonetheless. Ma'am, he said quietly. About the helicopter. What about it? She didn't look up. Maybe have it inspected one more. She laughed. The janitor's giving me aviation advice. That's precious. Stick to toilets, Marcus. Leave the flying to people with actual brains. Sarah walked past, caught Marcus's eye, mouthed. I know what you found. That afternoon, David made 3 more desperate calls. The mob was closing in. Tomorrow, Victoria would die, or his family would. Marcus had less than 24 hours to save a woman who despised him, stop a man driven by desperation, and do it all while hiding his true capabilities. The war wasn't coming anymore. It was already here. The 15th arrived cold and clear. Perfect flying weather. Marcus hadn't slept in 48 hours. Victoria stood in the lobby at 7 a.m., designer flight suit fitted perfectly. The helicopter waited on the roof. David hovered nearby, sweating despite the morning chill. Weather's optimal, he said. You should leave soon. I know my schedule, David. Marcus pushed his cleaning cart past them deliberately slow. In his pocket, the emergency procedures he'd written, folded small. He needed to get them into the helicopter without being seen. Then Victoria's assistant rushed in with a coffee cup, the same expensive blend Victoria drank every morning. Everything happened in slow motion. Marcus saw his chance. He accidentally bumped the assistant. Coffee exploded everywhere, mostly on Victoria. It splashed across her flight suit, her face, her perfectly styled hair. You absolute idiot! Victoria screamed. I'm sorry, I didn't, Marcus stammered, playing his role perfectly. This suit costs more than you make in 6 months. Coffee dripped from her chin. I have to fly in 20 minutes. There's a spare suit in your office, David offered quickly. Too quickly. I'll have it brought down. 20 minutes to change? Redo makeup. Victoria glared at Marcus. You're done. Fired. Security will escort you out. But those 20 minutes were all Marcus needed. While Victoria changed and David paced nervously making phone calls, Marcus slipped onto the roof. The security guard was on break. Marcus had memorized his schedule weeks ago. The Sikorsky's door opened easily. Marcus placed the folded instructions in the pilot's seat where Victoria couldn't miss them. Then he did something else. He pulled out his phone, activated the voice recorder, and hid it under the co-pilot's seat. If something went wrong, there'd be evidence. He started to leave, then stopped. Reached into his jacket. His old military challenge coin. The one thing he'd kept from his flying days. He placed it on top of the instructions. She'd recognize it as military. Maybe that would make her read them. Back inside, security was looking for him. Marcus ducked into a supply closet and waited. Through the thin walls, he heard David on the phone. She's delayed 20 minutes. Yes, the compound should still work. Altitude is altitude. I understand the consequences. 8:20 a.m. Victoria emerged from the elevator. Fresh suit, makeup perfect. Where's that janitor? Security's handling it, David said. You should go. The weather might change. They headed to the roof. Marcus followed through maintenance corridors, watching through a small window. Victoria climbed into the helicopter and saw the papers. Picked them up. What the hell? She read the first line. If your hydraulics fail, you have seconds to react. Follow these steps exactly or you die. She almost threw them away. Then she saw the challenge coin. Turned it over. Read the inscription. CW3 Marcus Thompson, 160th SOAR, Nightstalkers, Special Operations Aviation Regiment. Elite helicopter pilots. Victoria looked around the roof confused. David approached the aircraft. Everything okay? Fine. She pocketed the instructions and coin. Just pre-flight checks. The rotors began spinning. The sound hit Marcus like a physical blow. His hands shook. Sweat broke across his forehead. Fallujah flooded back. The family he'd misidentified. The children. The explosion. He forced himself to watch. The helicopter lifted off. Smooth. Professional. Victoria was a decent pilot. Robert had taught her well. 1,000 feet. 2,000. Marcus moved to the boardroom where the flight tracker showed her position. David was there, staring at the screen. Sarah, too, clutching files. 2,500 feet. Something's wrong. Victoria's voice crackled over the radio David was monitoring. Controls are stiff. 2,800 feet. Hydraulic pressure dropping. Panic crept into her voice. I'm losing. The radio cut to static. David went white. No. Too low. She's too low. It was supposed to be. He realized Marcus was standing behind him. You. David's voice was barely a whisper. What did you do? Marcus said nothing. Just watched the altitude reading. 2250. Holding. She was fighting it. Then Victoria's voice steadier. Tower, this is Skytech 1. Hydraulic failure. Attempting emergency auto-rotation. Following emergency procedures. She was reading his instructions. Sarah grabbed David's arm. You sabotaged her. Just like Robert. The elevator seemed to take forever. Her mind raced through every insult she'd thrown. Every humiliation. The coffee on the floor. Making him kneel. And the whole time he was protecting her. A war hero with more courage than anyone in her building, pretending to be nothing, taking her abuse, saving her life. The elevator opened. She ran through the lobby. The same marble floor where she'd humiliated him. Her heels echoed like gunshots. Marcus's car was still at the gate. Security had him waiting. She had one chance to make this right. Victoria reached the security gate. Marcus sat in his car, hands gripping the wheel. Security guards flanked both sides. Let him go, Marcus said through his window. I'm just a janitor, remember? Victoria approached his door. Get out. My shift's over. Get out. Her voice carried across the parking lot. Employees were gathering at windows above. Marcus emerged slowly, still in his stained uniform, eyes hollow from exhaustion. You're Marcus Thompson, Chief Warrant Officer. Nightstalkers. She held up the coin. You flew Blackhawks in combat zones. You have a distinguished flying cross. His voice stayed flat. Past tense. You saved my life. I delayed your death by 2,000 feet. There's a difference. Victoria stepped closer. My father hired you to protect me. Your father hired a janitor. Check the employment records. Stop. Her voice cracked. Just stop. I know everything. David confessed. The FBI has him. You called them. You modified the hydraulics. You made me crawl. Marcus's words cut through her momentum. On my knees. In front of 40 people. Live streamed to thousands. He pulled out his phone, showed her the video. 2 million views now. CEO humiliates janitor. That's your legacy. Victoria's hands shook. I didn't know. That I was human? Marcus laughed bitterly. Or that I was useful? A crowd had formed. Employees from the building. Security cameras recording. This confrontation would go viral too. Sarah Mitchell arrived, breathless. Marcus, wait. Show her the rest. She handed him a folder. Marcus tried to refuse, but Sarah insisted. These are my medical records, Marcus said finally. Since you'll find out anyway, Fallujah, 2018. Bad intelligence. I fired on what I thought was an insurgent vehicle. His voice broke. Family of 6. 2 parents. 4 kids. Victoria went pale. They lived, Marcus continued. But barely. I see them every night. Every single night. That's why I can't fly anymore. Why I shake. Why I take enough antidepressants to knock out a horse. He looked at the gathering crowd. That's your hero. A man who almost killed children. You were following orders. I was the pilot. My finger on the trigger. Marcus turned to leave. David killed my father. Victoria's words stopped him. And you knew. You've known for days. Marcus faced her. Suspected. Not knew. Why didn't you tell me? Tuesday I tried. You told me to stick to toilets. Wednesday you poured coffee on my work. Thursday, you threatened to fire me. He shrugged. When exactly should I have mentioned your CFO was planning murder? David's voice interrupted them. The FBI was leading him to a car. He saw the crowd, the cameras, broke free for a moment. It wasn't supposed to happen this way, he screamed at Victoria. Your father discovered my debts. He was going to fire me. The Torino said they'd handle it. I didn't know they'd kill him. An agent pulled him back, but David kept shouting. They own judges, politicians. They'll come for all of you. Marcus, you signed your death warrant calling the FBI. Actually, Marcus pulled out another phone. I called someone else first. A black SUV pulled up. Military plates. A colonel stepped out. Marcus's old commander. Thompson. The colonel nodded. The Torino family's been on our radar. Stealing military tech through aerospace contracts. This gives us what we need. He turned to Victoria. Your janitor just handed us the biggest organized crime bust in a decade. The Pentagon's very grateful. Victoria stood between them all. David in custody. The colonel saluting Marcus. Sarah holding evidence. Employees filming everything. The woman who'd humiliated a hero. She started, stopped. Then did something unexpected. She knelt. On the same concrete where Marcus parked his beat-up car every night. In her designer suit. In front of everyone. I'm sorry. She looked up at him. Not because you're a war hero. Not because you saved me. But because I treated you as less than human. And that's unforgivable. Marcus stared at her. Get up. No. You knelt for me. Now I kneel for you. Get up. He reached down and pulled her to her feet. Kneeling doesn't fix anything. It's just another performance. He was right. The cameras were rolling. This would go viral too. Then what does? Victoria asked. Marcus looked at the building. At the employees watching. At the colonel waiting. Change. Real change. Not gestures. He handed her the helicopter key she'd thrown at him. Start by flying your own helicopter. Stop letting others control your life. Your father didn't hire me to save you. He hired me to watch you save yourself. He walked to his car. You're still fired, right? He called back. Victoria almost smiled. Definitely fired. Marcus drove away, but everyone knew he'd return. The question was, as what? 3 days later, every employee gathered in the main atrium. The same marble floor where Marcus had been humiliated. Victoria stood at a podium. No notes. Dark circles under her eyes. She'd spent 72 hours restructuring everything. By now, you've all seen the videos. Both of them. Me humiliating Marcus Thompson. And me discovering he saved my life. She paused. I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here to make changes. The crowd stirred. Marcus stood in the back, civilian clothes for the first time in 3 years. Sarah had convinced him to come. Effective immediately, Skyteca's hiring practices change. We've been recruiting from the same schools, the same wealthy families. We've ignored veterans, minorities, anyone without the right background. She looked directly at Marcus. We've been fools. She pulled up a presentation. Custodial staff will receive full benefits. $30 minimum wage. Educational assistance. And respect. Anyone who treats support staff as inferior will be terminated. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The executives looked uncomfortable. Furthermore, Victoria clicked to the next slide. I'm establishing the Robert Blackwood Foundation. It will provide free flight training to veterans with PTSD, help them recertify, reclaim their wings. Marcus's jaw tightened. That hit close. But that's not why you're here. Victoria stepped away from the podium. Marcus Thompson, would you come forward? He didn't move. Please. Slowly, Marcus walked through the crowd. People parted like water. Some who'd laughed at him now avoided eye contact. Others nodded with newfound respect. He reached the front. Victoria handed him an envelope. Your final paycheck, she said loudly, then quieter. Plus 3 years of combat pay Robert was sending through shell companies. About 300,000. Marcus looked at the check. I don't want. It was always yours. My father just hid it. Like he hid you. She turned back to the crowd. Mr. Thompson is indeed fired from his custodial position. Because I'm offering him a new one. Chief of Flight Safety. 75,000 salary. Full benefits. He reports directly to me. The crowd gasped. Marcus shook his head. I can't fly anymore. You don't need to fly. You need to teach. Train. Ensure every aircraft in our fleet is safe. Ensure no one else dies from preventable sabotage. Victoria's voice grew stronger. We need someone who sees what others miss. Someone who understands that danger comes from inside, not just outside. She pulled out his challenge coin. You earned this flying into hell. The least we can do is give you a desk and a purpose. Sarah stepped forward, carrying a thick folder. The FBI recovered everything from David's office. The Torino family had compromised 3 other employees. We need someone who knows how to identify threats. Marcus looked at the folder. Names, photos, security vulnerabilities. This isn't charity, Victoria added. This is necessity. We have $800 million in military contracts. The Pentagon wants someone they trust overseeing safety. Colonel Morrison specifically requested you. The colonel's name changed everything. Marcus's old commander had saved his life after Fallujah. One condition, Marcus said. Name it. The foundation you mentioned. I run it. No board of rich donors deciding who deserves help. I know these pilots. I know what they need. Victoria extended her hand. Deal. They shook. The crowd applauded. Some genuinely. Others because cameras were rolling. Then Marcus did something unexpected. He pulled out his pill bottle. Held it up. This is sertraline. Antidepressant. I take it for PTSD. His voice carried through the atrium. If that makes you uncomfortable working with me, speak now. Silence. Then from the crowd, a voice. Prozac. For anxiety. A young engineer stepped forward. Lexapro. Another added. Depression. Xanax. Panic disorder. One by one, employees admitted their own struggles. Their own medications. Their own battles. Victoria watched, stunned. Her company, her father's company, was full of people fighting invisible wars. Maybe stop judging by appearances, Marcus said quietly. She nodded. Then louder, Skytech will now cover all mental health treatments. No caps. No questions. No stigma. The applause this time was real. Marcus turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. That video of me on my knees. 2 million views. He looked at Victoria. We do a follow-up. Show them what really happened. The full story. David. The Torinos. Your father. Everything. That could destroy our stock price. Or it could show the world that Skytech faces truth. Owns mistakes. Protects its people. Marcus shrugged. Your call, boss. Victoria smiled. The first genuine smile anyone had seen from her in months. We tell the truth. Marcus nodded and started walking away. Marcus, she called. He turned. Thank you. For my life. For my father. For everything. He gave a small salute. Not military crisp, but enough. Just doing my job, ma'am. This time, everyone knew which job he meant. 6 months later, the rooftop helipad gleamed under autumn sunshine. The same Sikorsky sat polished and perfect. But everything else had changed. Marcus stood beside it, clipboard in hand, running through pre-flight checks with a class of 12 veterans. Men and women who'd lost their wings to PTSD, trauma, or injury. The first graduates of the Blackwood Foundation. Hydraulic pressure, he called out. Normal range 1450 to 1550 psi, responded James, a former Apache pilot who hadn't touched an aircraft in 4 years. What do we check if it drops? Fluid level. Line integrity. Contamination, answered Maria, whose Blackhawk had crashed in Afghanistan. Marcus nodded. These people knew their stuff. They just needed someone to believe in them again. Victoria approached from the stairwell, flight suit on. She'd been taking lessons for months. Proper ones. From Marcus. Ready for your check ride? He asked. Born ready. But her hands trembled slightly. Hey, Marcus said quietly. What's rule number 1? Fear keeps you alive. Panic gets you killed. And trust the aircraft. Trust the training. Trust yourself. The veterans formed a circle around the helicopter. They'd all been where Victoria was, facing the machine that had nearly killed them. Sarah emerged from the stairwell, phone in hand. The documentary just hit 10 million views. Netflix wants to buy the rights. The follow-up video had exploded globally. Not just the story of Marcus and Victoria, but of corporate corruption, organized crime, and redemption. The Torino family was in federal prison. David Sterling had turned state's evidence. We're donating the proceeds to veteran mental health, Victoria announced. Every penny. Marcus checked his watch. Time to fly. Victoria climbed in. This time, Marcus took the co-pilot seat. The veterans lined up to watch. You know, Victoria said as she started the engines. My father would have loved this. Seeing you here. Seeing them here. He knew what he was doing, Marcus replied. Hiring me. He saved both of us. The rotors spun up. That familiar sound still made Marcus's heart race, but differently now. Not panic. Purpose. They lifted off smoothly. Victoria's hands were steady on the controls. Below, the veterans applauded. Some wiped away tears. Seeing one of their own back in the air gave them hope. At 3,000 feet, the exact altitude where Victoria had nearly died, she spoke. I need to tell you something. Focus on flying. I can do both. She kept her eyes on instruments. That day you knelt. When I poured coffee, I saw something in your eyes. Not anger. Pity. Marcus said nothing. You pitied me. This broken, cruel woman lashing out at everyone because her father died. Her voice stayed steady. You saved someone who didn't deserve saving. Everyone deserves saving. Even the ones who make you crawl? Especially them. They need it most. Victoria executed a perfect turn. The city spread below them. Skytech Tower piercing the skyline. I love you, she said simply. Not romantically, but the way you love someone who shows you who you really are. And who you could become. Marcus checked the instruments. Hydraulic pressure's good. Marcus? Yeah. Me too. They flew in comfortable silence. Below, the veterans had moved inside for their afternoon session. Group therapy. Marcus attended every week, telling his Fallujah story. It helped. There's something else, Victoria said. The Pentagon called. They want you back. Full reinstatement. Colonel Morrison pulled strings. Marcus had known this was coming. I can't. You could fly again. Officially. I do fly. Every day. Through them. He gestured toward the building where the veterans gathered. 12 broken pilots who will be whole again. That's worth more than any flight status. Victoria smiled. My father saw that in you. The teacher. The protector. He saw a lot of things. They descended slowly. Victoria's landing was textbook perfect. As the rotors wound down, she turned to him. That first day when I threw the keys at you. If I'd known, you'd have done exactly the same thing. Marcus unbuckled his harness. That's who you were. This is who you are. Both were necessary. The veterans surrounded them as they exited. Congratulations. High fives. Hope. Marcus looked at them all. His students. His purpose. His redemption. For the first time since Fallujah, he felt peace. 1 year later, the annual Skytech Memorial Service for Robert Blackwood. But this year was different. Marcus stood at the podium, wearing his first suit in a decade. Behind him, 53 graduates of the Blackwood Foundation. Pilots who'd reclaimed their wings. Veterans who'd found purpose. Robert Blackwood hired a janitor, Marcus began. But he saw a soldier. He knew his daughter would need protection. Not from outside threats, but from herself. From the isolation that power brings. Victoria sat in the front row. No longer the Ice Queen CEO. She'd learned to fly. Really fly. Not just helicopters, but how to navigate life without cruelty as armor. We all wear masks, Marcus continued. I hid behind a mop. Victoria hid behind arrogance. David hid behind spreadsheets. But truth has a way of surfacing. He pulled out his challenge coin. The same one Victoria had found in the helicopter. This coin says, Nightstalkers don't quit. But I did quit. For 5 years, I quit on myself. He looked at his graduates. Until a narcissistic CEO threw helicopter keys at me and accidentally saved my life. Gentle laughter rippled through the crowd. She challenged me to fly, not knowing I'd flown through hell and back. Not knowing her father had positioned me to save her. He pocketed the coin. Robert Blackwood played four-dimensional chess while the rest of us played checkers. Sarah Mitchell nodded from her seat, now Vice President of Operations. The woman who'd kept Robert's secrets had earned her place. But here's what I learned, Marcus said. Everyone's fighting something invisible. Mental health. Addiction. Trauma. Debt. Loss. The janitor you ignore might be a war hero. The CEO you hate might be drowning in grief. The CFO might be one bad day from catastrophe. Victoria stood up. So look closer. Look beyond uniforms. Titles. Skin color. See the human. Marcus nodded. That's all. See the human. The room erupted in applause. As Marcus stepped down, Victoria whispered, "Thank you." For what? He asked. For showing me that being broken doesn't mean staying broken. He gave a small salute. Just doing my job, ma'am. This time, everyone knew which job he meant. So here's what I want you to take from this. The next time you see someone cleaning your office, serving your food, working a job that society tells you doesn't matter, remember this story. Remember Marcus. Because you have no idea what battles they've fought, what skills they possess, or what they're capable of when the moment demands it. The janitor might be a hero. The CEO might be desperate. The quiet person in the corner might be the only one who sees the danger coming. Look closer. See the human. Treat people with dignity, not because of what they can do for you, but because that's what decent people do. And if this story made you think differently about anyone in your life, do me a favor. Share it. Tell someone. Because maybe, just maybe, we can all learn to see past the uniform, the title, the appearance, and recognize the human being standing in front of us. Thanks for sticking with me through this entire journey. If you felt something during this story, if it changed your perspective even a little, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more stories that remind us what really matters. And drop a comment telling me about a time when you underestimated someone or when someone underestimated you. Because we've all been Marcus at some point. And we've all been Victoria too. See you in the next one. And remember, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind. Always. I had no choice. David broke down. They'll kill my family. 50 million in gambling debts. They have people at Emma's school. The altitude dropped. 2,800. 2,500. 2,000. But controlled. Steady. Victoria was following every step Marcus had written. Auto-rotation successful. Her voice came through. Emergency landing in Riverside Park. Send vehicles. David collapsed into a chair. She's alive. They'll kill Emma. They'll kill my wife. Marcus finally spoke. No, they won't. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. Colonel, it's Thompson. I need a favor. Witness protection for a family of 3. In exchange, I have evidence of organized crime, murder, attempted murder, and corporate fraud. Sarah opened her files. Robert left instructions. If anything happened to him, I was to give these to someone he trusted. She looked at Marcus. He wrote your name. Marcus Thompson. The janitor he specifically hired 3 years ago. The papers included transfer documents. Photos of David meeting with mob enforcers. Records of the first sabotage. Robert had known everything. David looked broken. He suspected, He hired Marcus to watch, Sarah said. To protect Victoria. Through the window, they could see emergency vehicles racing toward Riverside Park. Victoria had landed. Rough but safe. Marcus turned to leave. Wait, Sarah called. She needs to know. No. Marcus kept walking. She doesn't. But the challenge coin in Victoria's pocket said otherwise. And Victoria Blackwood was many things. But stupid wasn't one of them. She'd figure it out. Victoria burst through the boardroom doors 30 minutes later. Hair disheveled. Flight suit torn. Alive. Where is he? She held up the challenge coin. Where's Marcus? The room fell silent. David sat handcuffed between two FBI agents. Marcus's call had brought them instantly. Sarah stood near the window. Robert's files spread across the table. Gone, Sarah said. His shift ended. His shift. Victoria's voice cracked. He saved my life. These instructions. She waved the papers. Only someone who's flown combat helicopters could write these. This level of detail, the terminology. She read aloud. When hydraulics fail at altitude, collective down, maintain rotor RPM between 97 and 102%. Spot your landing zone. Flare at 40 feet AGL. She looked up. AGL. Above ground level. No janitor knows that. Marcus Thompson isn't just a janitor, Sarah said quietly. She pulled up a laptop and typed rapidly. I did research after Robert hired him. A photo appeared. A younger Marcus in uniform. Medals covering his chest. Distinguished Flying Cross. Air Medal with V device for valor. Chief Warrant Officer 3 Marcus Thompson. 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. The Nightstalkers. Sarah continued reading. 1,500 combat hours. Flew in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. Until Fallujah. What happened in Fallujah? Sarah hesitated. Classified. But he was medically discharged. PTSD. Lost his civilian flight certificates. Victoria stared at the photo. This decorated warrior had been cleaning her toilets for 3 years. She'd made him crawl on his knees in front of everyone. There's more. Sarah pulled out a sealed letter. Your father wrote this before he died. He suspected David was compromised. David spoke through tears. The gambling debt started 2 years ago. They own me. The Torino family. 50 million in markers. They wanted Skyteca's military contracts. First Robert, then you. So you killed my father? I didn't pull the trigger. David sobbed. They sabotaged his plane. I just didn't warn him. They had photos of Emma at school. My 8-year-old daughter. Victoria turned back to Sarah. And Marcus. Robert found him at a VA hospital. Hired him specifically to watch over you. Paid him extra through a shell company. Marcus never knew it was Robert directly. Victoria picked up a maintenance report. Marcus's handwriting in the margins, noting discrepancies, tracking David's movements. 3 years of silent protection. He could have told me, she whispered. Would you have believed him? Sarah asked. A janitor accusing your CFO? The FBI agent interrupted. Miss Blackwood, we need your statement. The hydraulic fluid has been analyzed. It would have crystallized completely at 10,000 feet. You'd have had no control. No survival chance. But it failed at 3,000. Someone diluted it. Just enough to lower the crystallization point. Brilliant, actually. Whoever did it knew exactly what they were doing. Marcus. Victoria's eyes closed. He modified the sabotage to save me. The agent nodded. We found his phone recording under your co-pilot seat. David's full confession is on it. Timestamp 2 hours ago. Victoria walked to the window. In the employee parking lot below, Marcus's beat-up Honda Civic was pulling out. She could see his silhouette. Shoulders slumped. Head down. Stop him, she said. Ma'am. Security. Stop him at the gate. Sarah made the call. They watched Marcus's car halt at the security checkpoint. He sat there, engine running. Victoria grabbed the coin, the instructions, and something else. The helicopter key she'd thrown at him days ago. She ran for the elevator. Behind her, David called out, I'm sorry, Victoria. I'm so sorry. She didn't look back.